Welcome back to Fight City NYC. I'm joined here now with Dominic Morrow. He's our MMA analyst. Dominic, we're here to talk about this weekend's UFC 135. We've got a bunch of good fights set up on the schedule. First one we have is Ben Rothwell versus Mark Hunt.
Yeah.
What should we expect?
Well, this fight's going to be really interesting. Ben Rothwell has been around for a long time. He's been a middle-of-the-road heavyweight. He was a standout in one of the smaller regional leagues, but since moving to the UFC, he's never really made it up to that top tier. He did fight current champion Cain Velasquez, was pretty badly beaten, and that was only Velasquez's seventh fight. Not seventh fight in the UFC, seventh pro fight, period. So the experience didn't really help him out in that one. He's going to be fighting Mark Hunt, who is a kickboxer who's been around even longer than Rothwell has. He's won world championships in kickboxing. He's renowned for his heavy hands, his completely indestructible chin, and his complete inability to defend against submissions. Mark Hunt has 7 losses, including a 6-fight losing streak. 6 of those losses, of his career losses, have been by submission. Rothwell's submission game isn't all that threatening at all. So this could be a fight with some fireworks, one way or the other. But Hunt probably has a better chance in this one than he has had for quite some time.
Now, is this a pink slip match for Hunt in terms of if he loses, he's out of UFC?
Well, he's a fan favorite, and the UFC has been trying to make inroads in Australia for a while now, and Hunt is from New Zealand, so he's just wildly popular in the Australian fights, not least because he stands in front of people and just gets clobbered without getting knocked out. It's always exciting.
Right.
But for Rothwell and Hunt, yeah, I think one of these guys is going to be looking for work by Monday morning.
Okay, and then next up we have one of the Diaz brothers in action. We have Nate Diaz versus Takanori Gomi.
Yeah, so Nate Diaz is the younger brother of welterweight challenger Nick Diaz. So Nate doesn't have the same sort of boxing prowess that his brother does, but he also doesn't have the problem with press conferences that his brother does. So that's a pretty good trade-off. So Nate Diaz is better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu than his brother, arguably. And so he's definitely going to want to get the fight to the ground. He's not as good at striking. He's really good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He wants the fight to go to the ground. He's had some problems with wrestlers in the past, and Takanori Gomi is a wrestler. However, this is Diaz moving down from 170 to 155. So ideally, the size difference will help him pretend he's not as bad at defending against wrestling as he is. Meanwhile, Takanori Gomi, the wrestler, hasn't actually wrestled in 5-6 years at this point. He really likes to throw hands. He's really, really good at it. He's fast. He's brutally strong. He's got crazy knockouts, just highlights all over the place of knocking people out. But he's got no conditioning, none whatsoever. He gasses out in the first minute of fights, first 3 minutes of fights. So Gomi really needs to keep this fight off the ground and keep this fight out of the second minute, really. But if Gomi can do that, well, if Gomi doesn't do that, then Diaz is going to, just submit him rather effortlessly because Gomi is going to be too inept and too tired to defend.
Okay. And then in the next fight, which you marked as a pretty curious fight, we've got a heavyweight matchup between American Travis Brown and Englishman Rob Broughton. Now, other than his keg of a stomach, what does Broughton bring to this matchup?
Broughton, I think, is cannon fodder, really. He's been like Rothwell, he's been around in a lot of intermediate leagues. He doesn't have a very impressive record at all. He's got a very impressive gut, not an impressive record. It's a bad combination. So he's a grappler primarily, which is interesting for an Englishman because most of the British fighters, no wrestling whatsoever. I don't know what they put in their tea, but it does not make them good at wrestling. And he's going to be fighting a striker in Travis Brown. Brown is undefeated. He's been much more impressive in the minor leagues than Broughton has been. And I think this is really just trying to pad the roster at heavyweight for whenever the UFC gets their 4-man, Carwin, Lesnar, Dos Santos, Velasquez. Everyone knows those are the top 4 at heavyweight. But after those guys are done fighting each other, they need someone else to punch in the face, and I think that's going to be Travis Brown, unless he somehow loses this fight to Broughton. It's his fight to lose, really. These guys are not all that experienced. They're going to one of them is going to make their name in the UFC, and I'm betting Brown.
Okay. And then in the penultimate bout, we have Matt Hughes versus Josh Koscheck.
Yeah, this is an interesting fight. These are two of the best fighters, two of the best wrestlers, excuse me, in the UFC's welterweight division that aren't named GSP. Hughes has been around forever. He dominated the welterweight division in the first half of the last decade. He was bigger, stronger, wrestlier than everyone else he fought, and but that was a long time ago. That was like 7 years ago at this point. And Koscheck is the new breed. He himself is much bigger than Matt Hughes. He's much faster than Matt Hughes. He's much stronger than Matt Hughes. He doesn't have the same kind of experience that Hughes does. Hughes has 33 more fights than Koscheck. But I don't expect that experience to compensate for the lack of physical skills, because Hughes doesn't do any game planning. He plods forward, no head movement. He thinks he's a lot better at striking than he is. He thinks he's a lot better at wrestling than he is anymore. And I think we're going to see Josh Koscheck knock out a really old-looking Matt Hughes on Saturday night. It's going to be a rough night.
Okay, and then in the main event, we've got a fighter from your neck of the woods, Binghamton, New York. We've got John Bones Jones in action versus Quinton Rampage Jackson.
I'm so excited for this fight. Not just because Jones is from my hometown, but Jones, very exciting. He's walked through the entire light heavyweight division without a scratch on him. I mean, he's never been put on his back. He's hardly been hit. He's never been hurt. And Rampage might be the guy to do it. I mean, Rampage is going to have to make up for almost a foot disadvantage in reach, but Rampage, he hits really hard. He knows how to wrestle. He's got an iron chin. It's going to be an interesting fight. Jones, for his credit, he's just a wildly creative striker. He's deadly ground and pound. I mean, nobody lasts more than a minute on the ground with him without getting an elbow in the eye. It's going to be a great fight.
Now, realistically, how much of a challenge will Rampage present to John Jones?
Well, that all depends on how Rampage deals with the reach advantage. I mean, like I said, it's a foot in reach advantage, and Jones isn't the type to just stand back and jab with the reach advantage. I mean, he'll throw uppercuts because it doesn't take away his reach advantage. Even it's so huge. He'll throw high kicks. He'll throw spinning back elbows. He'll fake a takedown and use that to set up the spinning back elbow. He's very unorthodox. So Rampage isn't going to just walk through a series of jabs. He's going to walk through some serious strikes. If he gets inside, Rampage has nasty hooks. Rampage has nasty takedowns. Rampage has nasty slams. Rampage can do a lot of damage if he can get inside, and if he ends up on top of John Jones after an exchange, after a clinch, after a wrestling exchange. But that's a big if. John Jones is a really good wrestler. He's really big, he's freakishly strong. Just because Quinton gets inside doesn't mean that he's going to, take Jones down. So it's going to be really exciting. This would be. It's a giant challenge for Jones, but that's what being a champion is.
Right. We'll see what happens this Saturday, September 24th, UFC 135. Thanks for coming on Fight City, Dominic. Thanks for all your expertise.
Thank you.
Take care, and thanks for watching, everybody. Good night.